Welcome to this explainer. Right up front, I just want you to take a slow, deep breath and kind of tune into your body for a second. Because if you're like most people today, beneath the surface of your daily routine, your nervous system is likely carrying this incredibly heavy, invisible load. Today, we're taking a profound cinematic journey deep into the architecture of your brain. We're going to explore the modern crisis of cognitive fatigue, the actual biology of your body's master clock, and exactly how you can reclaim control over your sleep, your focus, and your long-term longevity.
So why are we always exhausted? I mean, it's basically the defining question of our generation, isn't it? We try all the productivity hacks, we chug the coffee, we push through the brain fog, yet that deep-seated burnout just stubbornly remains. And I really want to validate exactly how you're feeling right now. Your exhaustion is not a personal failure at all. It is a biological mismatch. You see, you are navigating a modern, artificially lit world using a nervous system that evolved to perfectly synchronize with the rising and setting of the sun. And this mismatch, it is silently draining your resilience. To really understand the scale of this, just look at this staggering number. Clinical research reveals that modern light exposure, and especially night shift work, can suppress your body's natural melatonin production by up to 54% over a 24-hour period. That means more than half of your body's primary signal for recovery and cellular repair is just erased. Artificial light has literally become the hidden enemy of your nervous system, tricking your brain into a state of perpetual daytime stress. Section 1. Inside your master clock. Okay, let's dive into this and explore the fascinating neuroscience of how our bodies actually tell time. Meet your biological conductor, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN for short. It's a tiny, highly specialized cluster of about 20,000 neurons nestled deep inside the anterior hypothalamus of your brain. Now, practically every single cell in your body has its own internal rhythmic clock, but the SCN, it is the master pacemaker. It synchronizes the whole shebang. So when you experience that crisp mental clarity in the morning, or that heavy, undeniable wave of fatigue late at night, you are actually feeling the SCN firing and orchestrating your biology. Let's move to and see how this builds, because the pathway from the outside world to your deep sleep is basically like a highly coordinated neurological relay race. Step 1, specialized cells in your retina capture light. Step 2, that photic data travels directly to the SCN. Step 3, as darkness falls, the SCN stops firing its daytime signals, which unlocks the paraventricular nucleus to send a rapid message right down your spinal cord. And finally, step 4, this signal travels back up through the superior cervical ganglion to activate a tiny, pinecone-shaped structure right in the center of your brain called the pineal gland. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact moment the magic happens. The pineal gland acts as a neuroendocrine transducer, which is just a fancy way of saying it takes the electrical signal of darkness and translates it into a chemical hormone. When that darkness signal arrives, the pineal gland rapidly converts stored serotonin into melatonin. Melatonin then floods your bloodstream and cerebrospinal fluid, signaling to literally every organ and tissue that it is time to lower your core body temperature, reduce blood pressure, and initiate deep cellular repair. But here is where modern neuroscience completely shifts the paradigm. We usually think of melatonin as just a simple sleep aid, right? But actually, it's one of the most potent neuroprotective antioxidants in human biology. Through this really fascinating process called autometachrinin signaling, melatonin is synthesized directly inside your mitochondria, the powerhouses of your cells. It acts locally to inhibit neuroinflammation and prevent cell death. So when modern life suppresses your melatonin, you aren't just losing sleep, you are actively losing your brain's primary defense against cognitive decline and oxidative stress.
Section 2, the dark side of light. This brings us to a critical inflection point for our nervous systems today.
Let's starkly contrast these two realities. In a biologically aligned rhythm, your nighttime melatonin is high, your core temperature drops, and you effortlessly drift into deep restorative sleep. But look at the disrupted rhythm, which is unfortunately the reality for night shift workers or honestly anyone staring at a bright screen at midnight. You have suppressed melatonin and elevated nighttime cortisol. And remember, cortisol is an alertness hormone. When you try to sleep in this state, you are actively fighting your own biology. It's exactly like trying to brake while your foot is jammed on the accelerator.
Now, you might think you need a massive, glaring floodlight to disrupt this system. But no. A mere 8 lux of light is enough to completely interfere with your circadian rhythm and halt melatonin secretion. To put that into perspective for you, 8 lux is the brightness of an average table lamp, or just twice the brightness of a standard hallway nightlight.
That's it. Your master clock is incredibly, exquisitely sensitive to even the slightest modern illumination.
And when we ignore this sensitivity, the toll of circadian misalignment is frankly devastating. This isn't just about feeling a bit groggy the next day. Chronic disruption leaves your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis essentially stuck in daytime mode. Long-term, this leads to metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular vulnerability, and drastically impaired immune function. Crucially, it disrupts the default mode network in your brain, which leads directly to that chronic brain fog, cognitive fatigue, and emotional volatility that so many people are struggling with today. Moving on to Section 3, the aging pineal gland. Because, as if our modern environment wasn't challenging enough, we also have to face the physical degradation of our master clock as we age.
The 17th century philosopher René Descartes famously called the pineal gland the seat of the soul, because he believed it was the literal connection point between the human intellect and the physical body. And while that's highly romanticized, Descartes was absolutely right about its central importance. But what actually happens to this vital seat of the soul over decades of life?
Well, the biological reality is pineal calcification. Over time, the gland develops these calcium deposits known as corpora arenacea, or brain sand. And as this tissue literally hardens, it causes hypoxia, which is a lack of oxygen, eventually leading to the death of those precious melatonin-producing cells. It triggers this brutal, vicious cycle. Less melatonin promotes more calcification, which lowers melatonin even further. This physical hardening and the resulting loss of neuroprotection are now heavily linked to neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, as well as the dangerous accumulation of amyloid beta plaque in the brain.
Now, while age is the primary driver of this calcification, it's really important to note that it is dramatically accelerated by modern lifestyle factors. For instance, a lack of natural daylight exposure, which causes vitamin D deficiency, removes the crucial regulation of calcium metabolism in your body. Emerging research also points to chronic inflammation and potentially even dietary fluoride accumulation as factors that can inhibit pineal growth and accelerate this hardening process.
Section 4. Reclaiming your circadian rhythm. So, the crucial point is, how do we actually fight back and optimize our biology in the modern world?
Thankfully, based on clinical data, we can implement targeted, actionable protocols. Take a moment to look at this breakdown. If you happen to be a permanent night shift worker, your goal is to stabilize your circadian rhythm to your specific nocturnal schedule. Taking 1 to 3 milligrams of melatonin 30 to 60 minutes before your daytime sleep physically signals to your brain that it's night. If you work a rotating shift, it's more about damage control. You'd use 0.5 to 2 milligrams after a night shift to force sleep onset, and then a very low microdose on your days off to gently pull your circadian rhythm back to normal.
But to use these protocols correctly, you really need to understand that exogenous melatonin is not a traditional sedative. It absolutely doesn't just knock you out. It acts as a chronobiotic, meaning it biologically shifts the timing of your internal clock. It binds to specific receptors in your brain. MT1 receptors inhibit the neuronal firing that keeps you awake, while MT2 receptors literally shift the phase of your master clock. Together, they safely lower your core body temperature and modulate GABA activity to gently open the biological gate for deep recovery.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it debunks the single biggest myth about sleep optimization, the idea that more is always better. When it comes to melatonin, timing matters exponentially more than dose. Massive doses of 10 or 20 milligrams don't give you a stronger sleep signal. They just linger in your system, spilling over into the next day and causing exactly the kind of groggy brain fog you are trying to avoid in the first place. The clinical sweet spot is remarkably low, usually just 0.5 milligram to 5 milligrams of an immediate release formulation taken right as you are preparing for darkness. We've journeyed through the incredibly intricate neurology of your master clock today, from the firing of the SCN all the way to the protective power of the pineal gland. You now know that your exhaustion is not a weakness, it's a biological signal asking for alignment. The science is incredibly clear. Defending your nervous system is the ultimate longevity habit. So, as you transition into your evening tonight, hopefully away from the screens and those 8 lux lamps, I want to leave you with this. How will you protect your master clock tonight?